Where did we stop last time? We were talking about, spiritualists and Christians. I'm just going through the previous few sentences for continuity. Spiritualists and Christians do not believe the personality perishes. The bodies die and the immortal spirit is separate from the perishable. Actually, why they believe like this is they believe only in the body gets resurrected. Is it audible? The spiritualists and the Christians do not believe the personality. Personality means all the bodies. Personality perishes. Actually, the Christians believe in resurrection of the body, not the spirit. They thought Christ came back and lived and he showed himself in physical form. That's what they believe. That is the Easter. That is the Easter festival they have. Okay. So, the bodies die and the immortal spirit is separate. The bodies are separate. The bodies die. The immortal spirit is separate from the perishable. This is of course well known. We also believe in that. We believe that the immortal spirit is something which is always there because it's called immortal. The bodies die. That's what we also believe. The followers of Swedenborg, this gentleman who talked about the doctrine of losing one's soul. Swedenborg talked about losing one's soul. He said that's possible as a result of losing one's individuality. That was the theory he put forward. So the followers of Swedenborg understand this. The Christians believe that there is a physical death. Christians believe that there is a physical death of the body and there is another death which is elimination or destruction of human element in man's nature. And it denies every possibility of human happiness. So, the happiness of the human being is lost because he has got in touch with matter and so he has sinned and all the rest of it. That's what the Christians believe. So, the Christians believe that there is a physical death and the body is preserved in the tomb. So that is what they believe, the physical death is there. But there is another death, which is elimination or destruction of human element in man's nature. This is also what they believe. What is the man's nature? To be happy. And he cannot be happy anymore. The possibility of his being happy is not there. So that's another death. That's how they feel. And that losing of happiness, they call it as spiritual death. So this is actually not the spirit with which we are familiar with, but the Christians believe the ability of not enjoying one's life, the ability of one not enjoying one's life. That is perhaps the actual spiritual death is what they feel, which is not right, but this is how they believe. So this happens before dissolution of the body, the second death, the spiritual death according to the Christians. It happens before the dissolution of the body when a person falls into love with himself. When a person falls into love with himself and love of the material world with its pleasures. So this is where the problem comes. This is where the origin of searching for happiness and happiness disappearing and so spiritual death and all the rest of it. Why does it come? Because this happens before dissolution of the body. When a person falls into love of his own self, he likes himself so much. He wants to live for himself, the happiness which his self wants. So that is what it means. The love of the material world and its pleasures. In the process, what he does, he loses the love of God. He loses the love of God and love of the neighbor. He doesn't love the neighbor doesn't love him because it is reciprocal, it doesn't happen. So he falls from life into death. That's what they believe is death. That's what they believe is as death. So there is a physical death, there is a preservation of body, even before the body is dissolved or destroyed wherever it is, in tomb or wherever it is. Then the person falls into love of his own self and love of the material world and its pleasures. And the inability to enjoy the pleasures by the man is called by the Christians as spiritual death, which is not very easy for us to accept, because these pleasures and all these desires are related to the astral loka and astral body. So this is not what we call spirit. Spirit is beyond all this, right? Then we move forward. We have understood what Christians believe as two deaths, the physical death and the spiritual death. The spiritual death is denying of the pleasures to the person who has died. That has happened because the person actually has fallen into love of himself, and he loves the material world, he loves the material pleasures, he doesn't anymore love God or his neighbor, and that is the reason why he falls from life into death. This is where we stopped last time. So now, going forward, a development of intellectual faculties does not imply spiritual and true life in all its glory. Development of intellectual faculties does not imply spiritual and true life in all its glory. Merely somebody has got intelligence, he is able to understand everything intelligently, or whatever he reads or whatever he studies, he is able to understand it well. That is intellectual understanding, intellectual faculties are well developed in him. That development of intellectual faculties does not mean that he has become spiritual and he is enjoying the true life in all its glory. So, intellectual faculties being in our command, a lot of people think I am intelligent, so I am spiritual. It's not right. Even if I know something about spiritual, the words of spiritual, maybe I know all the slokas of 700 slokas of Bhagavad Gita, another 342 slokas of Uddhava Gita. It doesn't matter at all. If I know what is the point, do I have it in my life? That's more important. That's what he means or she means. Development of intellectual faculties, HPB is saying, so he is wrong. Madam is saying this. Development of intellectual faculties does not imply spiritual and evolving of true life in all its glory. Many of the scientists and intelligent people, as they are called, are not spiritually oriented. She gives an example immediately. Many of the scientists who are intelligent, they are not spiritually oriented. They may be very, very intelligent. They may be having a lot of information, but they are not spiritually inclined. So, mere increase in the faculties of intellectual knowledge doesn't make him spiritual. This is something which we know. Even this knowing is only theory. But we know that mere knowing is not enough, and knowing and understanding the knowing, making that knowing or making that knowledge as part of me, it has become wisdom, then it is in a stage where it can help the person to become spiritual. So, mere development of intellectual faculties does not imply spiritual growth or evolution of true life in its glory. Then, the example is, many of the scientists who are intelligent are not spiritually oriented. They are not in touch with their spirits, leave alone getting in touch with the universal spirit. There are few exceptions even here. There are some people, like Newton for example, he always believed in the powers above him. So there are some people who are different, but there may be a lot of people who believe in the materiality of the science. So she is talking about them. Many of the scientists are intelligent, are not spiritually oriented. They are not in touch with their own spirits, right? In every walk of life, there may be persons who are not aware of what is spirituality. In every walk of life, there may be persons who are not aware of what is spirituality and what we mean by spiritual existence. What is spiritual existence? In every walk of life, there may be persons who are not aware of what spirituality is and what we mean by spiritual existence. So, it's a serious remark. They are spiritually dead as they are not exposed to the spirit and the spirituality. Such people who are there in all walks of life may be persons who are not aware of what spirituality is and what it means to be spiritual or what it means to live a spiritual life or existence. She says they're spiritually dead as they're not exposed to the spirit and spirituality. So this is something which we need to think about it and understand. Merely talking about spirit or spirituality is not really being spiritual. So that's why she said in the beginning, mere intellectual understanding of a particular subject or anything for that matter will not make one spiritual. So that having been told, she said scientists are there who are very intelligent people, but then they're not spiritually oriented. And then she said, there are a lot of people in every walk of life. In every walk of life, there are so many people who are not interested in what spirituality is and what it means to live a life of spirituality or spiritual existence because they are so engrossed in matter. Why it is happening in all walks of life, there are people who are not exposed to or not open up to spirituality is because they are so immersed in matter. The attraction of matter is so strong, it pulls them down. The spirit actually makes them to rise above matter. But spirit, they are not exposed to. So they are not able to put mind over matter. So as a result, what's happening is, they are engrossed in matter, they are lost in matter, they are continuing to live in matter. So for them, spirit is something which is unknown to them. So she says rather strongly, they are spiritually dead as they are not exposed to the spirit and spirituality. That's what Madam is saying. Pythagoras, she is moving to Pythagoras, believed and taught his disciples that the universe is a vast system of mathematical, precise combinations. So she has moved away from that subject which was talking about spirit, the death and physical death and spiritual death and all the rest of it, and then what she meant as getting exposed to spirit and spirituality. And then she has moved on to the subject of Pythagoras and mathematics and universe. So Pythagoras believed and taught his disciples that the universe is a vast system of mathematical, precise combinations. So there is perfect mathematics which is there in the universe is what Pythagoras believed. Pythagoras, Plato, all these Greek philosophers were all great mathematicians and geometricians. So Pythagoras is no exception. Plato is no exception. All these philosophers, why even Bertrand Russell was also a mathematician and a philosopher. Maybe a philosopher of a different genre, but he was also a philosopher and he was also a mathematician. So Pythagoras, she is talking about Pythagoras, believed and taught his disciples that the universe is a vast system of mathematical, precise combinations. So there are so many combinations which are there. All those combinations are based on mathematical formulae. So that's what it means. Plato also believed and showed the deity of geometrizing. Geometrizing. So Plato also believed that there is perfect geometry, perfect forms, perfect everything, in everything there is perfection based on mathematical precise forms. So Plato also believed and showed the deity of geometryizing. Geometry, Y is removed and you put ing, geometrizing. So this is what Plato also believed that there is. If Pythagoras said something, rarely we come across Plato saying something different. We don't normally see the father and the son. I'm only saying the guru and the disciple differing. We don't get to see that at all. So Pythagoras believed in mathematically precise combinations which are there in the universe. Plato also believed in the same thing. So, but he's only added, there's a lot of geometry in the universe. All the forms, as if designed by a great geometrician. All the forms have formed in the universe as if designed by a great geometrician. So there is perfect form. The forms have been designed by a geometrician. Geometry is part of the mathematics. So all the forms as if they have been designed by a great geometrician. The whole universe is sustained based on the law of equilibrium and the law of harmony. It is based on mathematics. All the forms are based on geometry. And there are two more things which are supporting. And that is, it looks like two, but it is only one actually. The whole universe is sustained based on the law of equilibrium and the law of harmony. So this is the combination in which the universe is found by both Plato as well as Pythagoras. They say everything is mathematics. I heard one scientist saying, you don't know mathematics, but mathematics, once you start doing, it is romantic, he told me. I didn't know what it meant. But then I was a small, maybe 16, 17-year-old when I heard that. And for me, mathematics was always a problem. I really couldn't enjoy the mathematics paper so much. Though maybe scoring marks is one thing, but not having interest in that is another thing. So what that gentleman told me, a scientist by name Pushkaran, he told me, Krishna, you don't seem to be realizing, once you fall in love with mathematics, it is romantic, he said. Okay, could be true. Perhaps that's what all this is talking about. The universe is full of mathematics and each form is based on geometry. So there's a grand or great geometrician who has designed all these forms. So to understand perhaps all this, we need to understand the basics of geometry and basics of mathematics. Maybe yes. So the whole universe, besides mathematics, is sustained based on the law of equilibrium and the law of harmony. Equilibrium means balance. Equilibrium means balance. The law of equilibrium means the law of balance and the law of harmony. Harmony is in the flow of life. Harmony is in the flow of life. Everything in this universe strives for harmony. Everything in this universe strives for harmony, for balance, for equilibrium. Based on these principles, the universe is built. So, if someone asks this question, how is this universe constructed and what are the views of HPB, you can perhaps take a leaf out of this book and say it is all mathematics or it is all geometry, and then it is also working on the basis of the law of equilibrium and the law of harmony. Harmony is in the flow of life. In the flow of life, there is always harmony. Disharmony comes when there is an intervention of the human psyche or human hand. Otherwise, universe, there is a lot of harmony. If there is any disturbance that is created, it's created by the man. So in the universe, there is always harmony. Harmony means the easy flow of life. Everything in the universe strives for harmony. Everything in the universe strives for harmony, for balance, for equilibrium. Based on these principles, the universe is built. So this is what she is saying. The law of harmony, the law of equilibrium. There is perfect balance. If there is an imbalance created by a man in his act of karma, the law of karma operates and sees, if not today, tomorrow or years later, balance is restored. The balance is restored, and the responsibility of restoring the balance is falling on the person who has done the damage, who was responsible for causing the disharmony. So the disharmony has to go, harmony has to come back. Who has to do that? The man who has disturbed it has to bring it back. So this is how the law of karma operates in the individual's life, and immediately there may be an opportunity for you to balance both, but sometimes if it is not immediately operating or immediately coming into force, it will come maybe during the course of life or maybe in the next incarnation. The ability or the possibility of that person putting back the balance which he has disturbed is always there with him, or that opportunity is given to him. This is something which we need to understand when we understand this law of harmony, law of equilibrium. And she says everything in this universe is striving for harmony. So there is nothing disharmonious or not having harmony. Everything is striving for harmony. Striving means struggling to or moving towards harmony, or working very hard to keep the harmony on. So the balance, the equilibrium, the harmony, based on these principles, the entire universe is built. Then she is talking about two forces which the people who are very expert in engineering, they'll be able to talk about it. The centripetal force and the centrifugal force. These are the two things which she is talking about. I'm sure somebody, an engineer like Mamata, or somebody who has got that bent of scientific understanding. Of course, these two forces have become very ordinary words for everybody to explore, and we seem to be understanding it, though we may not exactly say what it means. But centrifugal and centripetal force. She is also talking about these two forces. The centripetal force could not manifest without centrifugal force. So both coexist. The centrifugal force and the centripetal force, they coexist. So one could not get manifested without the presence of the other. So both centrifugal and centripetal go together. This is one observation she made. To move an object, a force is required. To move an object, a force is required. This is something which I am saying on my own, and there could be corrections. Maybe you can put it in a message if you like in the Skype. I am only saying from what little information I have on this subject. To move an object, a force is required. Force acts differently on the types of objects, depending on the type of motion. Centripetal and centrifugal, there are two types of motion. To move an object, a force is required. Force acts differently on the different types of objects, depending on the type of motion. Motion is movement. Centripetal force is the force acting towards the center of the circular path. Centripetal force is the force acting towards the center of the circular path. Centrifugal force acts in a different direction, pointing away from the center. These are the two basic understandings which I have picked up from my earlier days of doing elementary study in the science. I'm not expert in physics or anything like that. The general physics which I read, this is what it meant. And I've also heard the explanations of some people like Mr. Kantarao and others in the Hyderabad Lodge. So centripetal force and centrifugal force. Centripetal force is the force acting towards the center of the circular path. Centrifugal force acts in a different direction, pointing away from the center. So this is the two forces, and one force is not independent. Both have to be there. Centripetal force is there, centrifugal force is there. Both are there, both are required, both they go together. That's what the information is there for us. An example which people talk about very usually is the merry-go-round which is there in the circus or exhibition. So, body naturally has inertia. Body naturally has inertia. It's heavy, it is getting attracted to the earth. That's why inertia. And when there is a circular motion which is directed upon that merry-go-round, when the circular motion is given effect to, and the wheel moves, and we move along with the wheel, it makes us feel that we are falling away outside in the merry-go-round. That's why a lot of people give even safety belts, so that we tie ourselves to the particular chamber in which we are sitting. So the merry-go-round is one example. Body has naturally inertia, so it is getting attracted to the earth below. So when the circular motion is added on to the wheel, or the wheel is started to move or made to move, and it is gathering speed. As it is gathering speed, when we are going at a great speed, going round and round and round, we have a feeling sitting there that we are falling away outside. So that's why we tie the belt to ourselves. So the second example could be when the bicycle takes a turn. When the rider takes a turn, the rider and the bike appear to be moving inside towards the center. He automatically bends towards the change which is taking place. Suppose he is turning right, let us imagine. The bicycle rider is going to the right. He will not keep himself straight and bend. He will also bend naturally, automatically. And when he bends naturally, then he takes a right turn. So he is falling away from the center. If you draw a straight line when he is sitting straight, when he is riding the bicycle straight, from that straight, he is falling onto the right. So that is one force. That is the force. Centripetal force is the force acting towards the center of the circular path. Centrifugal force acts in a different direction, pointing away from the center. So one example for this is merry-go-round and the bicycle which somebody is riding, a small student or a boy is riding, and he is moving inside towards the center. There is a bend of the bike. The rider also bends towards the side where there is a bend. This is a perfect example of centripetal force. So this is what my son was giving another example. When we see the motor moving, or in the washing machine, there is a movement. There is a movement taking place in the washing machine where there is something which is propelling inside, and the clothes are pushed to the wall, and the clothes come back again. They go to the wall, come back again. This is also another force where they are falling away from the center. The clothes are going away from the center. But where it is coming into the center, that is one force, and where the objects are moving away from the center, that's a different force. So we have these two forces, centripetal force and centrifugal force. To move an object, a force is required. Force acts differently on different types of objects depending on the type of motion. Centripetal force is the force acting towards the center of the circular path. Centrifugal force acts in a different direction, pointing away from the center. So I understand this is all I know about this. So you can add whatever you know more about this if it is to be. See, our description of the centrifugal and centripetal force is limited to the extent of saying both those forces are required to continue existence. They both work together. This is also something like law of harmony. These two forces are always there. So these two forces being there, everything is falling in place. That's what it means. One force puts it outside, the other one is trying to bring it back. So what happens is there is a balance. One force is trying to push the object the opposite side, the other force is trying to put it back. So there is a place where it is settling down. That's perhaps what universe is all about. So this is what the information we need to find about the centripetal and the centrifugal force. Now, HVB has this to add. She wants to add this. And she says, the centripetal force cannot manifest by itself. We have studied this, or we've just gone through this, but HVB is again writing, maybe for the information of people like me. So HVB has this to add: the centripetal force cannot manifest by itself without the centrifugal in the harmonious revolutions of the spheres. Spheres means roundish motions. So HVB says the centripetal force cannot manifest by itself without the centrifugal force in the harmonious revolutions of the spheres. Then, I suppose, having explained so much about what little I knew about the centripetal centrifugal, this sentence is not difficult to follow. You have followed this. So all forms are the product of this dual force in nature. So she is saying all the products which are finding their existence in the universe are all there because of these two forces, the dual forces. So all forms are products of this dual force in nature. So in nature, these two forces are there, centripetal and centrifugal. So one doesn't operate on one thing. Unless both the forces operate, then we don't see the suspension of a particular thing in the universe. Suspension means the existence. I'm not saying it is hanging loose without any balance. There is something which is pushing it one side, the other one is pushing it back one side. So there is a place in between where the object is hanging. So that is perhaps the way in which these forces operate. So HPP has this to add: the centripetal force cannot manifest by itself without the centrifugal in harmonious revolutions of the spheres. So the roundish motions which are there, so centrifugal and centripetal force, they are together. One cannot manifest by itself without the other. And these two are basis for all the forms, all these two dual forces in nature. All forms are the products of this dual force in nature. Thus, for example, we'll call the spirit as centrifugal and the soul as centripetal or spiritual energies. So she is introducing the topic of the spirit and the soul. She says, thus, for an example, we'll call the spirit as centrifugal and the soul as centripetal or spiritual energies. When in harmony means both of them are functioning with a lot of harmony between them. When in harmony, that is between the spirit and the soul, there is harmony. We have moved away from that law, centripetal, centrifugal. That's only for explaining. Now she has said, thus for an example, we will call the spirit as centrifugal and the soul as centripetal or spiritual energies. So let us now superimpose these words or interpolate these words of spirit and soul. So when these two are moving in harmony, when in harmony, the spirit and the soul, both forces produce one result. The spirit and the soul, when they are in harmony, they produce one result. So individual life can sustain only when the two forces work in harmony together. So this has been, see, this togetherness, oneness, one supporting the other, interdependence, all this is the basis for the universe to function. So she is talking about this, the spirit and the soul. The spirit, we call it as centrifugal, and the soul as centripetal, and our spiritual energies, you can take it either way. When in harmony, both are in harmony, both forces produce one result. Both forces produce one result. So individual life can sustain, means can survive, can live, only when the two forces work in harmony together. If there is slightest deviation from harmony, if the harmony is disturbed, if there is a slightest deviation from harmony, it damages it. Damages what? Damages the sustenance or whatever is the form or individual life which has come into being, that gets disturbed. How that life has come into being? The individual life has come into being to sustain only when there is absolute harmony in these two forces which are there in the spirit and the soul. So they both are working together. That's why the individual life has come into being. And these two forces work in harmony together is stressed again and again. If there is slightest deviation from harmony, if there is slightest deviation from harmony, means somewhere something is going astray. Either the spirit is going astray or the soul is going astray. Somewhere something is going off the track. So if there is slight deviation, slightest deviation means a small deviation from harmony, it damages it. It damages the life. It damages the life. If there is large deviation, it's not slightest deviation, the deviation is very large, then what happens? The damage is beyond repair. That life gets destroyed. So that is exactly what happens. It means the body and the soul, as long as there is perfect union, they are together, the man is alive. When there is the force, one force disappearing from his life or the existence, from his being, then the life comes to an end. So this is what she is suggesting. If there is slightest deviation from harmony, it damages the life. If there is large deviation and the damage is beyond repair, means it has gone so far that you can't call it back or you can't put it back. So if there is large deviation and the damage is beyond repair, that life gets then destroyed. When the damage is heavy, the forces will not work together. When the damage is heavy, the forces will not work together. So if there is a slight deviation, meaning suppose somebody has fallen sick and that vital energy is replaced back, or they're able to put back the life into proper position by method of treatment or whatever it is, then the balance is restored. But if it is beyond repair, if the damage is so much that the damage is beyond repair, that life then gets destroyed. So when the damage is heavy, the forces will not work together. When the damage is heavy, the forces will not work together and the life gets annihilated. Life gets annihilated. So completely gets destroyed. So this is quite close. We are observing it, but we don't know that there is such huge forces working within us. This is the whole secret of our existence. But people with slightly scientific background, they'll be able to say what exactly is the spirit, what is the body, what is the soul. All these things they'll be able to analyze and find out. When the damage is heavy, the forces will not work together and the life gets annihilated. After the one which has deviated, when that life has lost its vitality, so one which goes away from the togetherness, the one which leaves the togetherness, that's what it means. After the one which has deviated, when that life has lost its vitality and it is not able to get connected back again to the glimmering or shining divine ray, there is a divine ray. There is a connection between these two. So what is happening? After the one which has deviated, after, I read it as alter, that's why there was a fumble. After the one which has deviated, when that life has lost its vitality, and is not able to get connected to the glimmering or shining divine ray, then what happens? There is a disconnection between the inner self and the outer self. After the one which has deviated, when that life has lost its vitality and is not able to get connected back again to the glimmering or shining divine ray, what's happening is there is disconnection between the inner self and the outer self. So this is what is happening, scientifically being explained. So there is disconnection between the inner self and the outer self. The soul which is freed, from the body because of the disconnection, the soul which is freed from the body because of the disconnection, it falls, not in all cases, but she is talking about certain cases where the soul has not soared high. The soul normally has to soar high, isn't it? It has to escape to the heights. But then there is a case she is talking about, the soul which is freed from the body because the disconnection sometimes falls into matter. It is supposed to go conquer matter and go towards the ether. That's where all these souls are waiting, right? But instead, what happens, sometimes the soul gets caught in the matter or it falls into matter after the disconnection. What happens then? That matter will be like a prison. That matter, the spirit or the soul getting caught in matter will be as if it is caught in prison. To be very precise, when the soul is caught in the body, actually it is in some sort of a prison only. It gets freedom when the soul soars high. Soars high means S-O-A-R-S. It flies high. But instead of flying high, because the way he led his life was more towards matter, more involvement with matter, and he was more enjoying the material pleasures. Suppose, let us imagine, that sort of a soul. Instead of soaring high towards the ether, it falls into matter. Which is like a prison. Then the annihilation of soul. Annihilation means destroying of soul. The annihilation of soul is actually escaping of soul, perhaps would be the right thing. But the writer says annihilation of the soul is never sudden. It may take centuries because in nature there are no jerks or jumps and starts. So there is always a smooth going in nature. It doesn't work in spurts. Spurts means it starts today, tomorrow it stops, again it starts day after tomorrow. It's not like that. So in nature there is a perfect motion. So she is talking about a peculiar case where the spirit after the disconnection has fallen into matter because of the type of life the person has led. So it got imprisoned in matter. So that was something like a prison. So that soul, if it has to get back to the original stage of possessing the ability to soar high, if the soul has to actually climb up to ether, suppose that has to get to that ability, it doesn't happen suddenly. Because the fall has already taken place. So it doesn't immediately go into the next mode and get away from there. It may take centuries. So it all depends how we should lead our life is something more important. It says it will happen after centuries that this person who is caught in matter, this soul which is caught in matter, gets disentangled from matter. It takes centuries because in nature there are no jerks or jumps and starts. So there is no question of starting something, stopping again. There is a spurt of motion, not having motion. That sort of thing doesn't exist in nature. So that's why it takes a lot of time for a soul which has fallen into matter because of the disgraceful way in which the person lived, using matter more than spirit. And he was not caring for spirit. So he was caring more for the matter, worldly happiness. So for that person, when that soul, instead of going and waiting in the ether or proceeding further, suppose it falls into matter, it will stay in that matter for centuries and nature has its own course. So when the soul has got caught in matter, it has become denser and the elements which are responsible for formation of matter take a lot of time again to evolve. Why it is taking time? because you got caught in matter, it takes a lot of time for the elements which have formed the matter. The elements means the five elements, the Panchabhutas. Not elementary, we are not talking about elementary. Five elements she is talking about. So, when the soul has got caught in matter, it has become denser, it has become thicker because matter is heavy, it has got inertia, so the whole thing has become denser, and the elements, the five elements, which are responsible for formation of matter. Any matter is formed by combination of these five elements. So the elements which are the reason or responsible for formation of matter, they take a lot of time again to evolve and dissolve. They take a lot of time to evolve and dissolve. So this is the law of compensation. This is the law of compensation. What is the law of compensation? Nothing but law of karma. I have done something wrong. I have to pay for it. And that payment, it could be resulting in so much of time in waiting. But if I have been careful while living, that sort of a situation may not come in my life. So this is what it means. So the elements are responsible for formation of matter, and the soul, because it got caught in matter, gets denser and denser, and the elements take a lot of time for evolving again. Only when all the elements which form matter dissolve, again, at that point of time, the spirit has got the ability to soar high. So to soar high, because it has fallen into matter, it may take centuries. That's what the text is explaining us. So we have to be rather very careful about this. Always remember that we cannot have permanent attachment to matter, permanent attachment to things related to matter, permanent attachment to those things which are of transient nature. Matter is transient. Matter is something which will get destroyed eventually. But then if you get caught in matter and not bothering about spirit, this is what happens. So, spirituality is all about getting away from matter, trying to understand the matter, use it as an instrument, like we use a boat to cross the river, and not more than that. That's all. So the spirit is more important, spirit is more relevant. So the other thing is not so relevant. Matter is not so relevant. So how we should be careful about matter and how we should be very vigilant about what matter can do to us is something which is explained in this paragraph. And this is the law of compensation, says Madam HPB. One has to pay a price for a deviation or for a misdeed or a misadventure. Somebody could have thought that this is an adventure. It could be a misadventure. That's what it means. So somebody experimenting their thought with matter is something which I do and I'll come back, he must have thought. But sometimes you don't have a chance to come back. You fall into a bottomless abyss. So one has to pay a price for a deviation or for misdeed or for misadventure. This is law of compensation. What we sow, so we reap. This is very familiar to us, the law of karma. So this is law of compensation, otherwise called law of compensation. So this is what she is talking about. So, మన గ్రూప్ లో ఉన్న కృష్ణమూర్తి గారు చెబుతుంటారు కదా, ఎప్పుడు విజిలెంట్ గా ఉండాలి, మాయలో పడిపోకూడదు, వి షుడ్ నాట్ గెట్ కాట్ బై, వివేకంతో ఉండాలి. ఆల్ దీస్ ఆర్ ఎక్సలెంట్ స్టేట్మెంట్స్. బట్ అంతకుముందు చెప్పినట్టు ఇంటెలిజెంట్ గా ఊరికే మాటల వరకే నేను నేర్చుకున్నానా, నిజంగా కూడా ఇంటెలిజెంట్ గా ఉంటున్నానా? దేర్ లైస్ ద టెస్ట్. Intelligently understanding is one thing, intelligently living is another thing. This is what we have to do. So the law of compensation says one has to pay a price for every deviation or for misdeed or for misadventure. What we sow, so we reap. So HVV briefly, this is what she talked about, this law of compensation, law of equilibrium, law of balance and all that. And now she is going on to another subject as it is her own in this book. HPB now briefly is taking us back to the subject of terrestrial spirits. We talked about terrestrial spirits in the beginning of this chapter. There are 4 types of spirits and all the rest of it. She is taking us back to that subject of terrestrial spirits. HPB briefly is taking us back to the subject of terrestrial spirits or elementary spirits of the earth. She's again dealing with that. Maybe it's something like this. I'm talking. Suddenly I remember something which I have forgotten to talk last time when I talked about elementary spirits. Hey, one thing I forgot. Let me add. Elementary spirits also mean this. Maybe that's something like that which she is. See, editor should have done this job of putting all these things in one particular place. That has not happened. That's not happened, though Boris D. Zirkov edited it, but he perhaps left it all like she wrote. So this is something which I find very, very often. She moves away from the subject of terrestrial spirits and she's coming back to terrestrial spirit. Of course, we're going to learn something new while talking about terrestrial spirits. Interesting. Terrestrial spirits, she's talking about briefly the elementary spirits of the earth. She says in the east means this side of the hemisphere, Manavaipu. The east, they are known as the brothers of the shadow. These terrestrial spirits about whom she is talking now, she says, in the east, they are known as the brothers of the shadow. Generally speaking, they are cunning, mean, and vindictive. Vindictive means they would like to take revenge. So they are cunning, mean means they don't mind stooping down to any level to achieve their ends. So they are cunning, they are mean, and vindictive, and are always seeking to retaliate their sufferings on humanity. They must have suffered a lot and perhaps now caught in this form of elementary spirits. They are caught in the form of elementary spirits because they have suffered in the hands of the humanity. So what they do? They retaliate. They're seeking to retaliate means pay back. Retaliating means paying back by the same coin. And are always seeking to retaliate their sufferings on humanity until they are finally annihilated. Finally, when this terrestrial spirit gets dissolved and it's no longer a terrestrial spirit, it goes to the next plane, the astral plane, and so on further. Till such time, they are terrestrial spirits. So these terrestrial elementary spirits of the earth, she says the east, they are known as the brothers of the shadow. Brothers of the shadow. They are cunning, mean, and vindictive, and are always seeking to retaliate their sufferings on humanity. Until they are finally annihilated, they function even as vampires, ghouls, and prominent actors. What it means is, they're all vampire is something which I have seen only in a movie. Vampire is something which sucks the blood of a person. Vampire. Ghoul is something like a ghost. And prominent actors means they act as if they are the real, but they are only actors. So suppose they come in the form of someone very familiar to us, we think that particular person has come to us and is talking to us. But actually it is not that person, but then they're acting. The spirit is acting through the person whom I know. They have taken the form of the person with whom I am familiar with. So they are called prominent actors. So these spirits can take the form, we have studied this some time back also, they can take the form of the person with whom we are familiar with. So that's how a lot of people are misled even now. We talked last week. So, and for the problems the humanity has pushed them into, they're trying to retaliate and they don't bother. Which human being did this to me, so I should do it back, is not their concern now. They simply want to somehow retaliate with anybody who is available from the humanitarian segment. So, not necessarily the person who has done the damage to that particular spirit or that particular when he was living, but whoever comes into contact. That's the problem with these elementary spirits. They catch hold of anybody who comes in their vicinity, in their sphere. So, retaliate sufferings on humanity until they are finally annihilated. So finally annihilated, what happens? They escape this position and they go to the astral plane, and then on and on and on they can keep moving. So till such time, they function as vampires, ghouls, and prominent actors. They materialize and take physical form with the help of intelligent, genuinely born elementaries. So among them, some are intelligent, some are not so intelligent. So even those, there is a lot of cooperation between these elementary spirits. So the intelligent one helps the not so intelligent one to take a form and take revenge if required. See? So there is a lot of help which it receives from the intelligent elementaries. So even the not so intelligent elementary can take the help of the intelligent elementary or the cunning elementary. So what it says, they materialize and take physical form with the help of intelligent, genuinely born elementaries. So all sorts of elementary creatures are there around us. They are terrestrial spirits, mind you. They are just above our earth. They are not gone into the ether. They are simply somewhere very close to our earth. So when we invoke the spirit of the dead, or we say, I want so-and-so and so master to come and grace me, these are the spirits which are taking the place and walking in. So this is what is happening. But a lot of people think they have actually got hold of the masters whom they are calling, or the person who actually died and who was related to them. This is the problem. So this is what is happening. The average, they materialize and take physical form with the help of intelligent, genuinely born elementaries. The average elementaries also take the help of other intelligent elementaries and take physical form. They can take it for a while and again use it and get back to their old form again, their own elementary form again. Some more information from the secret doctrine may be added here. So I'm just trying to put something which is of interest to you on the same subject, which Madam Blavatsky has further written in some other place. The secret doctrine says they're called Dugpas, D-U-G-P-A-S, a Tibetan term, Dugpa, D-U-G-P-A-S, Dugpa. Dugpas is plural, Dugpa is singular, a Tibetan term. So they're called Dugpas, all these elementaries who take form and trouble others and all that, they're called Dugpas. A Tibetan term. We can also refer to them as black adepts, black magic adepts, dark brothers, or sorcerers. Sorcery is dealing with the spirits which are evil. So they are also called the sorcerers. So we can call them Dugpas using a Tibetan term. We can also call them the black magic adepts, the dark brothers, the sorcerers, and practitioners of black magic for what it is worth. So these are all the people. They are all Dugpas. They are all elementary spirits. They are taking the physical form, and we might walk into their home or walk into their cave thinking that they're human beings. But they are elementary spirits. So we will not know. Somebody leads us there and say, all your problems will vanish. All your problems will vanish. We might quickly think, I need a solution, so I'll go to that sort of a place. So that is the problem which we are buying. So these people are called Dugpas, or black adepts, dark brothers, sorcerers, S-O-R-C-E-R-Y is sorcery. Practicing people are called sorcerers, practitioners of black magic in whatever form. And Master K.H. also refers to them as our greatest, most cruel, potential enemies to occultists. Though we are not supposed to use the term enemy, he says enemy to the occultists. Occultism I'm trying to follow. They come and stop us there. They come and distract us there. So they are enemies not to me as individuals, but then to the subject of occultism. So he says, Master K.H. says, refers to them as the greatest, most cruel potential enemies to the occultists. They're very cruel in their outlook. So once we get into their grip, it's very difficult to get out of their grip. So they're very cruel potential enemies to the occultists who are practicing occultism. So these are all the people who are called the elementary spirits. He is talking about terrestrial spirits with a purpose, I guess. It is with a purpose he is talking about. And it is, in a way, a caution for all of us not to yield to easy method of solving our problems instead of going through the karma. If we think, yes, there is someone who would do this, relieving us of the karma which we are supposed to face, and walk into their cave or walk into their home. It could be a home also. We do not know where they live. And he could be a dukpa, as Tibetans call them, or a dark brother, or a black magic adept or black adept. We call other people as great white brotherhood, isn't it? Great white brotherhood. Against that white, these people are black. They are all for humanity, whereas these people are selfish. So that's why they call black. Dark brothers, sorcerers, and practitioners of black magic of whatever nature. Master K.H. refers to them as our greatest, most cruel potential enemies to the occultists. Those who do not, these brothers of the shadows, as the name suggests, can be those who do not have bodies. So they assume the physical form with the help of other intelligent beings. So basically the terrestrial spirits, they do not have bodies. They are disembodied, all right. But there are intelligent elementary spirits. They can take a form. So those elementary spirits who do not have the capacity to take a form, take the help of other intelligent spirits and they take a form. So they don't have bodies. That's what we have to understand. The shadows, as the name suggests, shadow means it's not the real thing, isn't it? We call it a shadow. It's not me, it's my shadow. So shadow cannot have a body. So the shadows, as the name suggests, can be those who do not have bodies. They are also referred to as elementaries once again. They pose as masters. They pose as masters and mislead a lot of persons who are treading the path. A lot of people come forward to tread the path. A lot of people come forward to tread the path. But then they're misled. They say, we're putting you in contact with a master, and so we do not know whom we are meeting. So that is something which we need to avoid. When the time comes, it would happen. The twain should meet. The master and the disciple will meet. But then any effort from the side of the disciple to go and meet him, it will not result in positive result. There was somebody who went to Bhavali and went in search of master all over the place. For 4 or 5 days he got lost. You think he is available like that? Even if you have heard or if you have read Masters in the Path and all about this valleys and ravines and all that, you think you find them physically? No, it's not possible. But people mistake. That's the unfortunate part of it. So they pose as masters and mislead a lot of persons who are treading the path. They also get annihilated. In the process, these students get annihilated. They're killed. And at this point of time, I think I've mentioned in the past, there was one Australian youngster who came from Australia by name Gregory Banfield. He was very good, lovely person who had good background in theosophy, but then he went to Tibet. He went to Tibet to get in touch with people who are practitioners of white magic. Somehow he thought he would be able to get in touch with the masters. This is one misadventure he did. And what he saw and what he was exposed to was black magic, black culture. So he came back as a person who was mad back to Adyar. What was the time he came back? It was the convention time. During the convention time, he used to roam around in the campus without clothes. And without clothes, literally nothing on him. And he used to go around. and he was put in the one particular room, given sedation and all that. When the doctor was going there to give sedation the next day, because the door was open slightly, he pushed it open and then jumped from their place where the president was living. In fact, president quarters even now is All-Court Bungalow. So he used to stay in one segment of the All-Court Bungalow. He went on top of that and he jumped from there. So this is what happens to people who make a misadventure and try to get in touch with these dugpas or black magicians. So this I'm just saying, this is something which I have seen myself, and he had written a whole lot of diary-like thing, or so much of information which was there, where my name was involved, one Mr. Saeed's name was involved. So many people's names he had mentioned. So and so are good. They should continue to do their work. Something like that. He went on writing so many pages. So that sort of a person, he passed away. Gregory Banfield, an Australian, was hardly 25 when he passed. So these people also get annihilated in the process. They are the LOST, lost souls of Kamaloka. They cannot reach Kamaloka because they are dead. What happens? They also end up as elementary spirits. They're lost to the world of Kamaloka. They're lost to the world of Kamaloka. They cannot enter Kamaloka. They can't enter the astral plane. They continue to hover around the earth. I don't know whether he has gone back to Australia in that spirit, but definitely he must be somewhere around Chennai or Adyar for that matter. So they also got annihilated. They are the people who lost their entry to Kamaloka. Once past the threshold of the sanctuary, this is a very interesting statement. I'll take this and of course there are a couple of more paragraphs, but this paragraph is very interesting. So we have considered the dugpas. We have considered the way they play havoc with people who are innocent. Okay, now we are talking about a better thing, a positive thing. We'll end with a positive note. Once past the threshold of the sanctuary, what is sanctuary? Sanctuary has to be understood as a refuge or a safety from persecution or danger. That is sanctuary. Sanctuary normally means a place of rest and recuperation. But here sanctuary means once past the threshold of the sanctuary means it has to be understood as a refuge, means a place where one can take refuge or satisfy or safely, refuge from the danger and safety away from these sort of persecution or dangers. So that is sanctuary. Once past the threshold of the sanctuary of initiation. Before initiation, you have all these problems. Before initiation, if somebody is striving towards the spiritual upliftment of his own personal self, or he is trying to advance along with others, once past the threshold means the entrance of the sanctuary of the initiation, once that an adept has lifted the veil of the Isis, the mysteries and jealous goddess, he has nothing to fear. So once he gets in touch with the Isis unveiled, means the veil is lifted by the adept. Adept gives him the initiation. When the initiation is given, the thing which is there between you and the wisdom, that disappears. So then we can see the Isis, means the nature, the mother nature, you can see. So once past the threshold of the sanctuary of initiation, once that an adept has lifted the veil of Isis from the disciple's face, the mysteries and jealous goddess is before him, he has nothing to fear. So only when then he is saved. Before that, there is always the danger. So sanctuary means, as I've already said, refuge or safety from persecution or dangers. Usually it means a place of rest, recuperation, but here it means a place of refuge from danger. Till such time the initiation takes place. The occultist is always in danger of getting misled and fall into disgrace from grace. He is always in danger of getting misled and falling from disgrace to grace and from progress to the opposite of progress, means falling down in the estimate of everyone. That danger is always there round the corner. So this is something which we need to be very careful of. Till such time one gets initiated, I don't know when that will happen. If that happens, fine, well and good. And till such time that happens, we always have this risk of getting attracted to the dukpas or the elementary spirits who take the bodily form. They mislead you. They think and they pose as if Master KH has come before you. But it is not KH. Dukpa in the form of KH. I'm just giving an example. So one has to be very careful and find out what exactly one needs to do. So meditation also helps us to identify and see these things. What is real, what is not real is not necessarily a faculty, the mind, but also not go after this. Something where something is said, the result is coming almost immediately. We should not believe that place or that way is the right way. We have to, after all, believe in hard work. Nothing other than hard work will pay. So till such time the initiation takes place, this danger is always there to an occultist. So once the adept removes the veil and the disciple sees the Isis, the mother nature, that means God, till such time it is always a problem. So here I am stopping, and if required, if someone wants some clarification, if there is anything, I don't know, nobody is asking clarification, maybe it's clear, I do not know, but if something is there you can ask, otherwise maybe yes, you can discuss anything you like. Yes, this is what it means. I have explained all what I need to explain for this day, 1st of August. And I have stopped with a note that we have to be very careful in our pursuit of occultism. We cannot be just led away by somebody. We have to find out the truth all by ourselves. So that ability is there with us. So we have to be careful. We can't choose easy method. We have to believe in our own sadhana. It's not somebody else's sadhana which will become our result. It can never be. So we'll have to do the sadhana ourselves. So I leave it to you for discussing if you feel like. Otherwise, if someone has anything to add, they can add. Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. If anybody has any doubts, please carry on.
You have understood all the points, then no problem. If there is anything small, misgiving anywhere, we can discuss it. Not that I know everything.
Hello?
Chapandi.
Centrifugal and centripetal force, what you said is right. ఎందుకంటే మేము కూడా అట్లనే చదువుకున్నాం ఫిజిక్స్ లో.
చాలా ఎలిమెంటరీ.
అంటే ఇప్పుడు ఫండమెంటల్లీ ద ఆబ్జెక్ట్స్ ఆర్ మూవింగ్ ఇన్ ఆర్బిట్స్ ఇన్ ఏ స్టేబుల్ స్టేట్. అవి స్టేబుల్ స్టేట్ లో మూవ్ కావాలంటే ఈ సెంట్రిఫ్యూగల్ అండ్ సెంట్రిపెటల్ ఫోర్సెస్ షుడ్ బి బ్యాలెన్స్డ్. అది ఇన్బ్యాలెన్స్ అయితే ఇట్ మూవ్స్ టువర్డ్స్ ఎయిదర్ సెంటర్ ఆర్ గోస్ అవే ఫ్రమ్ దట్ ఆర్బిట్. అట్లా
రెండు ఆపరేట్ అవుతున్నందువల్లే థింగ్స్ ఆర్ హ్యాంగింగ్ ఇన్ ది యూనివర్స్ అంటున్నా.
ఇన్ ఆర్బిట్ అంటే ఒక ఫిక్స్డ్ పాత్ లో తిరుగుతుంటాయి. అది ఇప్పుడు మన సోలార్ సిస్టమ్ అంతా కూడా అట్లనే, సోలార్ సిస్టమ్ అంతా కూడా అట్లనే ఉంది కదండి.
దాని బేసిస్ మీదే ఉంది అని, యూనివర్స్ అంతా దాని బేసిస్ ఉందని.
అవునవును.
Thank you, Krishna sir. Thank you all. We'll close the session. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.